Hello and welcome to this weekend's Punters Guide. Once again, both codes are covered. We've got Jason Weaver a little later on talking about a couple of flat races in front of the ITV cameras on Saturday afternoon. We've got Dan Barber joining us for the final day of the National Hunt season. Jumps header, of course, at time for. And Dan, before we get stuck into the racing at Sandown, reflect on the season first of all. Paul Nicol, champion jockey once again, regaining his title, and a first-time champion jockey in Harry Skelton.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't float everybody's boat, that champion jockey battle, but I enjoy them and spend a lot of time on northern tracks, so I'm always biased towards Brian and want him to do particularly well. And I think he's ridden great again this year, but he's run into a pretty irresistible force in Harry Skelton, who's picked up outside rides, and you can't say he's not a deserving winner. He's been here, there, and everywhere. He's not ridden as much as Brian, but he's had a higher strike rate, and yeah, it's a crowning glory for a pairing who I think strike me anyway as the most likely candidates to really try and get in amongst this Irish domination of all the big races on these shows at the festivals. I know they didn't have any success at Cheltenham, but they had lots of near misses and horses that were very competitive. And I think that is the theme of the season generally, Matt. It's been the fact that Britain need to pull the socks up and try and narrow this gap. Ireland have got this ridiculous strength. And if you want one performance of the season, then it won't take long for me to decide that it was Allaho in that Ryanair. It was just, you just so rarely see jumps races like that.
On a personal level.
Yeah, I know there are many reasons why people like races, and it's not always financial, is it? This time it's partly, but it's mainly just for the spectacle. It was just unbelievable. What a bruising performance. He just absolutely obliterated good horses. To see horses of the calibre of Mr. Fisher and an Imperial Aura legless 4 out and 5 out as he just continued to roll. I mean, it was a stunning display, and we'll get to see him hopefully at Punchestown when connections are saying they're looking to drop back to 2 miles to take on Chac and Poissoir.
Wow, mouth-watering, of course. And we'll talk about Mr. Fisher shortly because he runs on Saturday afternoon. But we start with a novices handicap hurdle. 14 of them go. And the Skeltons have got 2 in here. Harry rides Rockstar Ronnie. Interesting, his wife, Bridget, is on Gilo, who at the present is just a tiny bit shorter in the betting.
Yeah, I don't think there's much between those two. Rockstar Ronnie's he made a bit of hay earlier in the season. He ran into a horse last time at Southwark called Norris to Flow, who came up to Perth where I am today on Thursday, and probably didn't run his race after a long season. But Rockstar Ronnie, no reason to think he'll be exactly in the same boat. But I'm overlooking the Skeltons, and I think Royal Muni's worth another chance. He's a 4-year-old, so he's getting the age allowances. It looks a good spot for him. Quickish ground will be perfect. Bear in mind how good he was in those that jumper's bumper at Lingfield. I mean, what a turn of foot he showed to obliterate them that day. So I think under unusually quick conditions for Sandown, we're used to them slogging around in the mud here, that would have blunted him. But I think it will give him an edge now the ground has dried out significantly. With the allowances, he's carrying only 10-2, so he's getting at least £6 from everything. And he ran in a juvenile handicap at Ascot last time and shaped perfectly well. So in theory, this is the absolutely perfect opportunity for him. And because of the season being last day, typical Gary Moore, he's got him in that perfect opportunity before his status as a juvenile expires.
Yeah, Gary Moore, of course, such an excellent record at Sandown. Move on to the Oaksy Chase then, 2 3/4 miles, the trip at 2:30. And you mentioned Mr. Fisher, you'll be looking for the Allaho form, to be frank. Taking on Frodon and Born Survivor in here. And Military ran well for a long way when I last saw him at Aintree.
Yeah, he's a remarkable veteran, that horse. And Andrew Martin this season, not just him, he won a bumper at Newbury earlier in the campaign. So kudos to that trainer. But it does look a bit of a match to me. Frodon and Mr. Fisher. And I'm very conflicted. On one hand, I think you just assume, well, Frodon will get to the front, potter along, soft lead, Bryony get him into a rhythm, and it will be game, set, and match. But I think the goalposts move a little when the ground changes, and she's going to have to ride him with enough dash to make sure that stamina comes into play, because that's the concern for Mr. Fisher, isn't it? He's 2 3/4. He's still to prove his stamina for the distance because he tipped up at Aintree when they tried him over further. But there's that other scenario where if Frodon doesn't go too quickly, I think Mr. Fisher will do him for pace on this sort of ground. Prices, Matt, they'll be more revealing. I won't lie, I've not been privy to them as yet. But if they don't make Mr. Fisher favourite, I might be interested in having a few quid in him and hope that Frodon sets a pace, but doesn't set a strong one, and perhaps leaves himself a little vulnerable to Mr. Fisher's superior turn of pace.
Frodon's a shade of odds on, so you'll certainly get the value then if you see it as a match odds against Mr. Fisher around about the 6-4 mark.
Yeah, I like that.
Big fan of that one. Could that be the bet of the day? We'll find out shortly. The celebration chase down at 305. We see the champion chaser in here put the kettle on. I mean, she's got an imperious record at Cheltenham. Can she do it here? That is the question. Altior coming back. Do you know what? Everything's said and done. I'm a big fan of Skill Royale in here. I think he's got every chance. The ground's come right, and he's got the least question marks to answer as well. So he'd be for me. But it's a real nice renewal to end the season.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. And obviously, we'll have the Willie won't he, and probably until the very last minute with Altior.
Until he's down at the start.
Yeah, absolutely. Until that tape's gone up and maybe refuse to race just to really rub salt in the wounds. But yeah, you almost like won't believe it until you've seen it. But I mean, if connections are worried about bad ground for him, then there should be absolutely no reason why they're worried about the conditions at Sandown, unless they actually deem it too quickly. But hopefully the equine Goldilocks gets his chance and runs on ground that's considered just right for him. But if he does, under these conditions, I think I'm echoing what you're thinking, Matt. Will it really suit him? That flat spot that we know he hits, will that be exacerbated when conditions are a lot faster than he's used to racing under? And also, lack of match practice. We've not seen him for 4 months now. Is he going to be sharp and sharp enough to beat horses like So Royale? We know he's all speed and has had a tremendously productive campaign, hurdles and fences. And also, I've liked all season Grenadine, who, yeah, he's maybe not delivered at the top table as I thought he might, but he went a lot closer to doing so in that champion chase and stopped that race at the last. And I think he looks like beating Put the Kettle On. So it'll be a different race to the champion chase, if you ask me. This will be more of a burn up and less of an emphasis on stamina at the trip. And I think that counts against Put the Kettle On. It may well count against Altior as well. And I'd be looking to oppose the pair. And I might actually go two-pronged here. Grenadine and your horse as well, So Royale, both speed animals who might be better equipped for the test. Let's not forget Nutswell for the North. He's had an absolutely brilliant season. The stable as a whole, and Hamilton and Ian, a partner, have been an absolute revelation, winning races with the likes of Tommy's Oscar has been very progressive for them. Significant upturn in their form, and Nutswell's been the flag bearer, but perhaps he'll have to settle for a minor role again.
Yeah, I think it's dropping like a 30% strike rate this week. It was 34% going into air last weekend. So they've had an incredible season. And this fella ran, he made a bit of trouble, didn't he, at Aintree? He'd have been a lot closer, I think, to Fakadidri on that occasion. We'll move on to the Bet365 Gold Cup, then formerly the Whitbread, formerly Betfred Gold Cup as well. Without being disrespectful, I'm not sure it's the greatest renewal we've ever seen. And I think that the key piece of form is from Wincanton, the Badger Beer, earlier on this season. We've got the 1, 2, 3 lining up here. El Presente finished ahead of Potterman and Kitty's Light. Kitty's Light much worse off at the weights here, but is a shorter price.
Yeah, and it's a tricky one because he's actually confounding the belief that, well, that allowance that the 4-year-olds get in the first part of the season is absolutely critical, because he didn't have that when he went to Kelso, and he still pulled it out of the fire in that national up there with, I mean, he's a freak, this horse. He's not bred to stay this far, and yet he looks like no distance will be too far for him. He would stay absolutely any trip, and he's still unexposed over marathon trips. So I do think he deserves to be shorter than the two that, as you say, Matt, are actually better off at the weights with him from the Badger Ales. I'd give Golden Fortune a chance. I think, yeah, he doesn't have the obvious profile, a latecomer to chase in this season who has done it in small fields, but he shaped quite well in the Corto Star, and he's ticked over with a couple of runs over hurdles since. And I'll probably go two-pronged in this as well. I agree with you. I don't think it is a strong race. A lot of these I don't back as a rule, and I'm not going to change that when they're in a race of the calibre of the old Betfred Gold Cup. But the two prongs for me will be Kitty's Light. I think he's a thorough stayer who's unexposed at the trip and just continues to flourish for a stable that's had a good season, haven't they? With the likes of him and 5-Star Getaway. And at a bigger price, I will be keeping Golden Fortune on side. He's always struck me as an out-and-out stayer, and conditions are perfect for him, Matt, and he's fairly fresh for the time of year.
Yeah, interesting. And Tom Scudamore, of course, on board after fresh from his Scottish national success last weekend. The Grade 2 selector, not in front of the ITV cameras, but well worth talking about. Sadly, only 7 go to post. Couple of intriguing Northern Raiders, Captain Zebo and Clondor Catlin, give this one a little bit of added spice.
Yeah, they do. I mean, Captain Zebo is a bit of a freak. I mean, we rarely get to see him, but he's got some engine on him, and he'd be some story if he was able to. I mean, he'd probably get a nosebleed if he ran below Carlisle. He's now got to go twice as far again and more to get down to Sandown. I hope the sat navs are working for the Dixon family. And obviously John isn't able to claim because it's a race of such prestige, so it's hard to see him winning it. But he does have a bit of spice, and it's good to see them having a crack. Trappy, as it always is this map, it's a very trappy race. One horse I've been with for most of the season, a Henderson horse who does run very regularly, is on the blind side. I do think this trip might be slightly on the sharp side for him. You mentioned Clondor Caitlin. It looks like she might be biting off a little more than she can chew for all I really rate her. So I didn't really know where to go. So I just pinned it on, well, what's likely to happen tactically? And tactically for me, You Never Call will probably get a soft lead. And in a race where I'd be keeping the stakes to a minimum, because it tends to be a nasty little affair, that tactical angle was just enough to make me think that he could be a value bet.
Yeah, then that wraps up Sandown. What will the best bet of the weekend be, Dan? Is it Sandown or is it something we haven't discussed?
I'd say it was Sandown. If anybody gets access to this before Perth on Friday, hopefully I've gone through the card there, but that's unlikely to be the case. Nap-wise, I'll go for Royal Muni in that first race. It just looks a perfect spot. I won't pretend it's full of what I'd class absolutely outstanding bets. Mr. Fisher could have been one, because I do think he might have a bit too much pace for Frodon. But at a price, go for Gary Moore, the juvenile in the first race, getting the 4-year-old allowances before they expire, having run well at Ascot, and almost certainly going to be a better horse than a lot of these on quick ground.
It's very rare that the Moors leave Sandown without a winner as well, whether it's the first or last meeting of the season. Before I let you go there, Dan, just a quick word about the Betfred World Snooker Championships. I know you love your potty marathons, and only 2 qualifiers gone through. The seeds certainly held sway in the first round. Some impressive performances as well. The likes of obviously Judd Trump and Mark Selby looking rather sharp.
Yeah, Selby's. If you want to liken him to race horse, he's one of those. He's a Jackadam who keeps coming back to a Gold Cup, and although in his case he actually wins the big prize, I mean, he just comes alive, doesn't he? As some horses do at the festival, as some snooker players do at the Crucible. So I was most impressed with him. I'd love somebody with Neil Robertson's hair to win the title. That'd be tremendous in itself. You just want to pat him on the head. He looks so cute. But I mean, Judd for me is the best player in the world at the minute, and I think on balance he's got to be favourite, and I'm just waiting for the day that my boy Dean can win it, because getting edged out by Stuart Bingham in another close call was another Crucible heartbreak for him one day. Will he manage to put it right? I'm not so sure, but yeah, like you, I was most impressed with the 2 big guns, Trump and Selby.
Yeah, sure. It's only a matter of time before we do have an Asian world champion, because Yan Bingtao already a Triple Crown winner landing the Betfred Masters. Right, Royal Uni, the name to note from Dan Barber at Sandown this weekend on the final day of the national season. So thanks to Dan. Let's go and join Jason Weaver then and talk about the couple of flat races in front of the ITV cameras on Saturday afternoon. The Leicester listed contest, the King Richard III Stakes. I think they found some of his bones in a car park, didn't they, in Leicester? Just the 5 go to post here. And now, cast your mind back to the beginning of last season, Lord Campari burst onto the scene with that impressive win in Newbury, but struggled in high company twice since. But Roger Varian's won 2 of the last 6 run-ins of this.
Yeah, I mean, he was a little bit in and out last year, if I'm being honest. I have to say, Pogo is a horse who I've had quite a lot of time for. He's one of those who, again, seems to produce his best when he's a little bit fresh. Kieran Schumacher is sort of filling in all the gaps at the moment. I think we're going to see him have a really good season. We're guaranteed a little bit of pace because Shine So Bright, as we know, loves to pop along up towards the front end. Whether he's ever going to come back to the form, maybe that win in the Sky Bet at York was just the one that took the edge off him when he got the better of Lauren. So, Beat Le Bon, Mum's Tipple, they're good horses. And Roger Varian's horses have been a bit hit and miss, haven't they? They've not really hit their straps just yet. On the other hand, Charlie Hills' team are absolutely flying. And I just think Pogo, he has attracted a little bit of support and he's got that decent record fresh.
Certainly, I'm looking forward to that. 250 at Haydock as well. This is 13 of them go to posting. This is a 7 furlong handicap. And I can't emphasize how important the draw is here, because it's not that far to that tight bend, isn't it? So them drawn low will have an advantage.
Yeah, it's one of those. And also, the thing with Haydock, they seem to get away from you up on the front end. They turn into that straight, and we've seen it so many occasions. Richard Kingscote is absolutely fantastic around there. And once they just get rolling away from you, you can never really quite seem to drag them back. Again, Charlie Hills has booked William Buick. I can tell you that William Buick, obviously the Jockeys Championship starts from this next weekend. Guineas weekend is when they start counting. I always thought that they jumped off of the Craven, but they've even shortened it again. It's now Guineas weekend. William Buick is throwing himself into the championship. I was lucky enough to play golf with George Baker the other day, and he works for Ed Walker. He said it doesn't matter if it's the last race and it's a 0 to 50, 0 to 60, 0 to 70. He wants to be there and he's riding. So he's certainly going to make Oisin Murphy pull out all the stops. And Oisin doesn't look that concerned, does he? He's now got his eye on the bigger prizes, or at least that's what he's telling us. Anyway, Persuasion was around about best price 7s. I think has been backed into 5s. Really decent effort when we saw that one last out at the back end of last year. And Buick loves to go from the front end.
So that was Jason Weaver talking about the 2 ITV races this weekend. Of course, fast forward next weekend, we're looking forward to the classics, the 2,000 and the 1,000 guineas. But it's the end of the jumps this week. So thanks to Dan Barber for joining us to talk about Sandown. And also congratulations once again to Paul Nicholls, champion trainer, once again for this National Hunt season, regaining his title. And a big congratulations for the first time to Harry Skelton, champion jumps jockey. Will he be able to retain his title next season? So looking ahead to the classics next weekend. Can't wait for those. Enjoy this weekend first of all though, and whenever you're back in, please gamble responsibly.